If you drive a CVT transmission, chances are you're making at least one of these huge mistakes, and you probably have no idea it's happening. Right now, millions of drivers are quietly sabotaging their CVT with these everyday habits. They seem completely normal. Your neighbor does them, your family does them, even some mechanics do them. But these 13 habits are slowly destroying your CVT. And the worst part is you probably won't even realize it until you're stranded and facing a repair bill that can hit $15,000. I've spent years digging through Reddit horror stories, poring over Consumer Reports data, and talking with professional mechanics. What I found honestly shocked me. Over and over, the same patterns showed up in failed CVT transmissions. These weren't random breakdowns. They were preventable disasters triggered by habits that most people think are harmless. CVTs are totally different from regular automatic transmissions. Instead of gears, they use a belt and pulley system that gives you infinite gear ratios. It sounds futuristic, but this system brings its own set of problems. These are the problems most drivers never learn about until it's way too late. The most expensive habit on this list can leave you stranded on the side of the road and wipe out your savings. But let's not start there. First, you need to understand the small mistakes that set you up for the big failures. So let's kick things off with habit number 13, a mistake that happens right after you get work done on your car. This one seems minor, but it's actually the foundation for everything that follows. Imagine you just had a new CVT belt installed. Most people think, great, back to normal driving, and immediately hit the road like nothing happened. That's a massive mistake. I'll never forget a customer who did exactly this. Picked up his car after a CVT belt replacement, then took it straight on a weekend camping trip, towing a heavy trailer and racing up mountain roads. 2 weeks later, his brand new CVT belt failed completely. He was furious and demanded a refund, convinced the CVT belt was defective. But here's what really happened. New CVT belts need a careful break-in period to seat properly on the clutch faces. The CVT belt surface has to conform to the pulleys. If you drive hard right after installation, you cause excessive slip, heat, and premature belt damage. Guaranteed. The fix is simple, but most people skip it. For the first 20 miles, drive gently. Vary your speed. No hard launches, no high-speed runs. Think of it like new brake pads. You wouldn't slam on the brakes right away, and the same logic applies here. Factory CVT belts start at about 38.3 millimeters wide, with a service limit near 35.3. If you break them in properly, they can last up to 20,000 miles. Skip this step, and you might be back in the shop after just a few thousand, but improper break-in is just the beginning. The 12th habit happens every time you park your car, and most drivers never think about it. After highway driving, climbing mountains, or any demanding situation, people usually pull into their driveway and immediately shut off the engine. What they don't realize is they're trapping dangerous levels of heat inside their transmission. When you drive hard, your CVT fluid gets extremely hot. The metal parts soak up that heat and keep radiating it even after you stop. If you shut off the engine right away, you also shut off the cooling fan and oil circulation that help remove that heat. Imagine turning off the oven right after roasting a chicken. The leftover heat keeps cooking it, and it can ruin the meal. In your CVT, that leftover heat keeps cooking the fluid, breaking it down and killing its ability to protect your transmission. The fix? Just let your engine idle for 1 or 2 minutes after hard driving. The cooling fan runs, the oil keeps circulating, and the heat gets drawn out. It costs you nothing, but skipping this step could cost you $10,000 or more in repairs. Now, things start to get more serious. The 11th habit is something many car enthusiasts do to customize their vehicles, and it's destroying transmissions faster than most people realize. I've seen this story play out over and over in online forums. Someone buys a CVT-equipped vehicle and immediately starts adding modifications like bigger tires, roof racks, winches, sound systems, or other accessories. They're excited to make their ride unique, but what they don't realize is that every modification changes the load on the CVT system. Here's a real case from the Can-Am Outlander community. An owner installed a 650 secondary helix clutch, Dalton 3-finger clutch weights, a tan spring, and oversized 26-inch tires. Within 5 months, they experienced 2 catastrophic CVT belt failures, bad enough to destroy the CVT cover. The failures happened after high-speed operation while towing heavy loads. Community analysis pointed to excessive heat buildup caused by insufficient CVT cooling and clutch setup issues. The Dalton clutch weights were too light, causing more slip and more heat. Adding rivets to those weights increased their mass, reduced slip, and lowered belt temperatures by improving belt grab. When you increase weight or change rolling resistance without recalibrating the transmission, you're asking your CVT to do more than it was ever designed for. The belt and pulley system relies on precise friction and clamping force. When the load exceeds those limits, the CVT belt slips, heat skyrockets, and wear accelerates. The solution isn't to avoid modifications entirely, but to properly recalibrate the system. That means adjusting clutch weights, springs, or upgrading to adjustable clutch kits. The cost of recalibrating is just a few $100s. The cost of a failed CVT from Improper mods? Easily $5,000 or more. But even if you never touch a single modification, the 10th habit could be blocking something critical your transmission needs to survive. And most drivers have no idea it's happening. Most people don't even know their CVT has a dedicated cooling system, let alone that they might be accidentally blocking it. I discovered this myself when helping a friend with transmission problems. We opened the hood and instantly found the culprit. His aftermarket air intake had blocked airflow to the transmission cooler. He had no clue this was even possible. CVTs generate massive amounts of heat because of the friction between the metal push belt and pulleys. They run under extreme pressure and speed, so that heat has to be removed or the fluid breaks down and components get damaged. Most vehicles have dedicated cooling systems for the CVT, including coolers built into the radiator and sometimes auxiliary coolers. But lots of things can restrict airflow to your CVT cooling system. Snorkels or intake filters that are clogged, iced over, or poorly designed can choke off cooling airflow, causing the CVT to overheat. In winter, snow and ice buildup can block cooling passages, leading to rapid overheating. Some people even remove clutch covers to improve airflow, though that makes things much noisier. Others experiment with 12-volt bilge blowers to actively move air through the CVT housing, giving consistent cooling even when the vehicle is barely moving. Advanced airflow management reveals some surprising issues. Removing snorkels or upgrading to larger diameter ones, 2 inches instead of the standard 1.5, can make a huge difference. The Can-Am Outlander case showed that 1.5-inch snorkels restricted airflow compared to 2-inch versions, directly contributing to overheating and belt failure. You also need to avoid stealth snorkel setups that recirculate hot air. These can actually make cooling worse by sending hot exhaust air right back into the CVT intake, raising temperatures even more and speeding up belt breakdown. Many factory cooling systems are undersized for demanding use. They feature 2-port oil coolers built into radiators with limited surface area. Thermostatic valves can delay fluid flow to coolers, cutting cooling efficiency right when it's needed most. But even if your cooling system is working perfectly, the 9th habit is still destroying CVTs. And it comes down to something as basic as the fluid you put in your transmission. Walk into any auto parts store and you'll see a dozen types of transmission fluid. Most people think transmission fluid is transmission fluid. But with CVTs, using the wrong fluid is like putting diesel in a gasoline engine. It might work at first, but it's going to cause serious problems. Unlike regular automatic transmission fluid, CVT fluid is a specialized synthetic blend made for the unique demands of the belt and pulley system, clutch packs, and variators. The fluid must provide the right friction, maintain proper thickness across a wide temperature range, and resist the extreme pressures in the CVT. Every manufacturer has specific fluid requirements that you can't substitute. Nissan CVTs need NS2 or NS3 fluid. Honda uses HCF2. Subaru and Toyota each have their own blends. Using the wrong fluid, even from the same brand, can cause immediate damage to seals, create improper friction, and lead to belt slippage. CVT fluids contain specific friction modifiers, anti-wear additives, and viscosity improvers calibrated for each transmission design. Use the wrong fluid, and these chemical properties don't match what your transmission needs. The result? Excessive slip, inadequate lubrication, seal swelling or shrinkage, and rapid breakdown of internal parts. I've read multiple forum posts from owners who used universal CVT fluid or mixed different types. Within a few thousand miles, their transmissions failed. One owner saved $30 using generic fluid, only to face a $12,000 transmission replacement 6 months later. CVT fluid breaks down over time from heat, contamination, and the extreme pressures inside the transmission. As it degrades, its ability to lubricate drops, its friction characteristics change, and it cools less effectively. Using the correct fluid from the start and changing it regularly keeps these critical properties intact. Using non-approved CVT fluids can also void your warranty, leaving you on the hook for the full cost of repairs. Even if the fluid seems to work at first, warranty claims can be denied if the manufacturer finds out the wrong fluid was used. The small savings from cheap fluid can end up costing you thousands. The eighth habit is something almost everyone does when parking or maneuvering, and most drivers think it's totally harmless. Picture this: you're parallel parking, backing out of a driveway or making a quick U-turn, and you shift between reverse and drive while the car is still rolling. It feels like no big deal, everyone does it, but every time you shift without coming to a complete stop, you're quietly shaving miles off your CVT's life. When you shift from reverse to drive or vice versa while the car is moving, you're forcing the transmission to change power direction while the internal components are still spinning the other way. In a CVT, this creates massive stress on the belt, the pulleys, and the hydraulic system. The belt has to stop, then instantly reverse direction, and the hydraulics scramble to keep up. Each time you do this, you cause tiny bits of wear that add up fast. The more often you do it, the sooner you'll face problems like slipping, shuddering, or even total failure. It gets worse. These quick shifts also generate heat inside the transmission, breaking down fluid and wearing out components even faster. The solution is simple: always come to a complete stop before shifting between reverse and drive. It only takes a second, but it gives the transmission time to settle, reduces stress, and can add years to your CVT's life. Professional drivers follow this rule religiously, and their transmissions routinely last well over 150,000 miles. Those who ignore it, they're often looking at repairs before 60,000. Now, the ninth habit is one of the most counterintuitive CVT killers out there, and it trips up even experienced drivers. Most people assume using high gear at low speeds saves fuel and reduces engine wear. With CVTs, the opposite is true. Using low range when you're traveling under about 25 miles per hour is actually better for your transmission. In low gear, the engine runs at higher RPMs, which keeps air flowing through the clutch and helps cool the CVT belt and pulleys. If you ride slowly in high gear, the CVT belt rides lower on the pulleys, which means less grip, more slip, and more heat. That extra heat is the enemy. It accelerates wear, breaks down CVT fluid, and can lead to catastrophic failure. For off-roading or technical terrain, using low gear is even more important. It keeps the CVT belt riding high, maintains grip, and prevents overheating. And don't forget to keep your CVT intake filters clean. Clogged or iced filters can choke cooling airflow and make the problem worse. The takeaway? Use low gear for slow speeds, climbs, descents, and technical driving. It might use a tiny bit more fuel, but it can save you thousands in repairs and keep your CVT running strong. The eighth habit becomes a critical problem every winter, and it's something millions of drivers do on cold mornings without a second thought. Picture this: it's freezing outside, you're running late, and you start your car and immediately put it in drive to rush out. This is one of the most damaging things you can do to a CVT. Cold transmission fluid is thick, almost like honey, and it can't flow properly. That means poor lubrication, bad hydraulic pressure, and tons of friction on the belt and pulleys. Manufacturers like Subaru and Honda have engineered all sorts of tricks to help their CVTs survive cold starts, but nothing beats gentle warm-up. The best strategy, if possible, park in a garage, use an engine block heater, and let your car idle for a couple minutes. But don't just sit there. Gentle driving is the fastest way to warm up the transmission. Avoid hard acceleration and high speeds until the fluid is up to temperature. If you have an OBD2 scanner or a vehicle with a transmission temperature gauge, use it to know when you're in the safe zone. Those few extra minutes of patience can prevent thousands in repairs down the road. The seventh habit is all about city driving, and it's a silent killer for CVTs. If you commute in heavy traffic, your transmission is facing some of the harshest conditions possible. Stop-and-go traffic means constant starting, stopping, and creeping forward. Every time you accelerate from a stop, the CVT has to adjust pulley ratios and clamp the belt hard to transmit torque. This happens hundreds of times in a single commute, generating heat and wearing out the belt and hydraulic system. Even when you're stopped in traffic but still in drive, the CVT maintains partial engagement to be ready to move. That means the belt is slipping against the pulleys, generating heat and wearing down the surfaces, even when you're not moving. Shifting to neutral at long stops can help a little, but frequent shifting can wear out the hydraulics. The best move? Drive as smoothly as possible. Maintain longer following distances, use cruise control when you can, and avoid rapid acceleration or braking. If you can, adjust your commute to avoid peak traffic. And for city dwellers, installing an auxiliary transmission cooler can make a huge difference in CVT life. Now, the sixth habit seems totally reasonable if you go by the towing ratings in your owner's manual, but it's actually one of the fastest ways to kill a CVT. Here's the scenario. You buy a CVT-equipped SUV or crossover, see the towing rating, and figure you're good to haul trailers or boats regularly. What you don't realize is that CVT towing ratings are often optimistic, and real-world durability is a totally different story. CVTs use a metal belt to transmit engine power, and the heavier the load, the more friction and heat are generated. That heat breaks down the transmission fluid, which is critical for cooling and lubrication. Many manufacturers provide towing ratings, but also include fine print that transmission damage from towing may not be covered under warranty. If you must tow with a CVT, follow severe service intervals, more frequent fluid changes, monitor transmission temps, and consider installing an auxiliary cooler. Never tow with drive wheels on the ground and engine off. And if you tow heavy loads often, you're better off with a traditional automatic or diesel engine. The few $100s you spend on preventive measures are nothing compared to the $8,000 to $15,000 for a new transmission. The fifth habit is one that's all too common: ignoring warning signs. Your CVT is constantly sending you signals, sounds, vibrations, warning lights, and changes in behavior. Whistling or squealing is often the first sign of CVT belt slippage. Grinding or rattling could mean pulley or guide problems. Clunking might be a mount or differential issue. Don't ignore these sounds. Early intervention can turn a minor repair into a few $100s instead of a full transmission replacement. Other warning signs include slipping sensations, delayed engagement, burning smells, or the dreaded check engine light. CVT failures rarely happen overnight. They build up from small symptoms that get worse over time. Waiting until the car goes into limp mode or loses drive completely is a recipe for a 5-figure repair bill. The second habit might feel satisfying, but it's one of the most destructive things you can do to a CVT. Imagine you're at a red light, the light turns green, and you floor the accelerator to merge into traffic or get ahead. That aggressive launch might feel good, but it forces the CVT to transmit maximum torque while the belt is adjusting ratios at lightning speed. The result? Extreme friction, heat, and microscopic damage that adds up with every launch. Even a single aggressive launch can create wear, but do it hundreds of times, and you're asking for early failure. Professional drivers use progressive acceleration, smoothly building speed and letting the CVT adjust ratios gently. It's better for the transmission, better for fuel economy, and much easier on your wallet in the long run. And that brings us to the number one habit, the single most destructive mistake that separates CVTs that last 200,000 miles from those that fail before 60,000. This one is so common because of a dangerous myth, the idea of lifetime CVT fluid. I can't tell you how many times I've heard, the dealer told me it never needs to be changed. But when you check the fluid and find it black, thick, and smelling like burnt rubber, you know disaster is coming. CVT fluid is a specialized synthetic blend that does everything from lubricating to cooling to providing hydraulic pressure. Over time, it degrades from heat and contamination and loses its ability to protect your transmission. Most experts and experienced owners recommend changing CVT fluid every 30,000 miles, sometimes more often for demanding conditions. Ignore this, and you're gambling with a repair bill that can hit $15,000. Some manufacturers suggest longer intervals, but owner communities and mechanics agree. 30,000 miles is the sweet spot for most CVTs, especially Nissan, Honda, and Subaru. If you go longer, you risk catastrophic failure, often with no warning. And beware, on high-mileage CVTs, a full flush can sometimes do more harm than good. In those cases, a simple drain and fill is safer. The cost of regular fluid changes is nothing compared to a full transmission replacement. A couple $100s every few years can save you thousands and keep your car running for years. If you want your CVT to last, make fluid changes a non-negotiable part of your maintenance routine. So here's the bottom line. CVT longevity isn't about avoiding just one bad habit. It's about understanding how all these habits work together, either to protect your transmission or destroy it. Whether it's breaking in a new belt, idling after hard driving, recalibrating after mods, or just listening to your car's warning signs, every small step adds up. CVTs need a different mindset than traditional automatics. They can be reliable and efficient, but only if you respect their unique needs. The cost of prevention is always less than the cost of replacement. But here's the thing. Protecting your CVT is just one piece of the puzzle. Most drivers don't realize that their everyday habits could be slowly destroying the rest of their car as well. If you want to make sure you're not secretly sabotaging your engine, suspension, or electronics every time you hit the road, you need to see the 18 everyday driving habits that are killing your car. Most drivers have no idea they're doing these, and the consequences can be just as expensive as a failed transmission. Click here to find out if you're making any of these silent car-killing mistakes before it's too late.